Hi, everyone. My name is Victoria Berry, and I'm with the Family Focus Resource Center. And today we're happy to bring you part 2 of a 2-part webinar series called Get Ready to Return to School. And today's presentation is part 2, Tips for a Successful Year. And our presenter is going to be Michelle Heid with Advanced Behavioral Pathways. And today's presentation is going to build on part 1, which we had in August. Both of these workshops will be recorded and will be available on our YouTube page. If you didn't get to see one or the other, they'll be there. So thanks, Michelle, for being with us. And school's underway, so we're excited to hear about tips that parents and teachers can use to have a successful year.
Yeah, thanks, Victoria. Yes, school is back in session in the Santa Clarita Valley and in the Antelope Valley and in the San Fernando Valley. And it's really going to be very different than any year we've experienced in the past, because a lot of kids have been out of school for a long time and are experiencing some unique challenges. And we're happy to share some tips for how do we navigate those challenges and help kids have success. So I'll jump right into some of our tips. This webinar, we're going to cover a little bit of information about masks because my team spends a lot of time in classrooms and in schools, and we do see a lot of difficulties with this and have some recommendations that might help kids just, get through this a little bit easier and a little bit better, and things that parents may not realize because they're not in the classroom all the time. We're going to talk about some stuff related to health and safety. We're going to talk about a big topic, which is virtual IEPs and how to have a successful virtual IEP from a parent perspective. We're going to talk about school and teacher communication, supporting mental health, and some of the behavioral challenges that we're seeing at school and how parents can really help their kids. So masks, they're really here to stay. We don't have any idea right now when LA County Department of Public Health or anyone else is really going to remove that mandate. So kids are doing a really great job with this at school for the most part. I'm actually really surprised at how quickly and how well students have adapted to this. But some things to just really keep in mind is you may want to still allow your child to pick out their own mask, all the way from what you purchase at the store or online, what's being ordered, to what they wear that day, what they pack in their backpack. It's really become almost, a different fashion statement. And when I'm on schools and I'm wearing my mask, I get a lot of, oh, that's a really cute mask, and, statements from students. So I think it really is important that kids, take some ownership of that and are wearing something that they like and that they think is comfortable. We really think it's also really important that they keep multiple masks in their backpack because they often, they get wet. I had a child the other day walk up to the water fountain, or maybe it was a water bottle, and take a big swig without pulling his mask down because it's just, ingrained in us. And he just did. So his mask got completely wet. And luckily he just pulled out another one right out of his backpack. But, having multiple might be really important because, again, if they don't have one, then we're giving them one from school, and schools have a bunch. So that's not an issue, but some children are really picky about which ones they wear. I help one student in particular who always wants to wear a black one, and the ones at school are white with colorful kid-like designs. But if we don't have another black one, then he doesn't really want to put one on, and that becomes a big problem. So if he has multiple in his backpack of the kind that he likes, then we just can make sure that he's always wearing one. They also get torn, lost, just throughout the day. So it's good to have an extra. We also need to make sure that they have a comfortable fit for all day wearing. I had a little guy first week of school. His mask was coming off and he would ask for help putting it back on, But, with the health and safety guidelines, us adults were not really supposed to be touching students and getting that close. And this poor guy, you really had to pull that thing pretty tight to get it on properly. And we felt like we were really kind of squishing his head to get it on his face. So making sure that they have a really comfortable fit for wearing all day is important. And the biggest thing about fit is that it comfortably fits over their nose. Have your child wear it at home for a while. If it's falling down constantly, then we are having to prompt them repeatedly to pull it up over their nose. And that's kind of one of the biggest, reminders that teachers and staff are having to constantly tell kids is mask up, mask up. So if they just have one that comfortably fits like that, then they're not having to deal with that as much throughout the day. And we're able to focus on things that, really matter. Like we're able to prompt for academic attention to their academics or completion of work and things like that, instead of pulling their mask up over their nose. And I've got a little guy that his mask just always constantly falls down. It's nothing he's doing. It just doesn't fit properly. So really making sure that those, comfortable, fit properly, they like them, and that they have multiple are just really important. And like I mentioned, I really don't think this is anything that's going away anytime soon. Another thing we're teaching kids is to ask for a mask break if that's needed. So, we had a little guy, a second grader, and he just really says he feels suffocated by it. We found an adjacent classroom. A lot of classrooms have pods or adjacent rooms, and this room is adjacent to a computer lab that's not being used right now. And so the school team decided if he needs a mask break, he just has to ask for it. He can go into that adjacent room, take it off for a few minutes, and then come back into class. They're also building those into their school day where they're going on walks or going outside where they can take them off for a few minutes. And that really seems to be helping. But just encourage your child to ask for a break if that's something that they're struggling with, because a lot of kids are struggling with it. And it's not something uncommon, and the teacher can really work that into the schedule if they just ask. This little guy that we worked with, we gave him a sand timer for 3 minutes and just said, flip the sand timer over, and when it's done, just come back in. And he's doing that really nicely. Another thing parents can do is just model that appropriate mask wearing, when they're at home, when you're out in public, when you're supposed to be wearing them, that you model wearing it appropriately so that they just, can kind of follow along with doing what is needed. And we might want to share the importance of why we wear it, including how to wear it properly, the importance of it so that, they're getting that consistency from home and at school, because again, don't think that's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. We also want parents to understand the rules of mask wearing at school, because some schools may have to wear it all the time, wear it only indoors. In the cafeteria, they may have to wear it versus eating outside for the lunch area. So, you may really want to understand what your child's rules are for that so that you can reinforce that at home. Along with mask wearing, we're also dealing with a lot of health and safety, rules and routines that have been kind of built into the school day. And so this would be important too for parents to review those rules of health and safety for the school. What are they doing? What are they requiring from kids? So that parents can reinforce those and make sure that their kids are, easily following those. So things like some classrooms and some schools, they use hand sanitizer each time they come back in the classroom, whether they're at recess or at play. They come back in the classroom and they have to do that. And so knowing, how to get hand sanitizer, how much to get, how to rub it in properly. I mean, these are all the things that we are seeing at school that parents may not be aware that kids are not yet really knowing how to do possibly. And teachers and others, they're reviewing those safety rules fairly regularly, but parents can also make sure that their kids are aware of those. And a lot of these, like we mentioned about the mask, those rules really likely to stay in place for some time. So it's just, it's time for us, if you haven't yet, to just kind of get in line with some of those and get on board with supporting the teachers with all of those. It's very helpful if parents reinforce and support those rules so that kids are more likely to follow them when they come to school. I know some parents may not agree with some of those rules, but when kids are at school, those are not rules made up necessarily by the teacher or by the principal or by the superintendent. Those are things sent out from LA County Department of Public Health that schools have to follow. And your child, if they're at school for that 6-7 hours a day, they also have to follow those rules. So it's just really important that we all collaborate to help support kids and that they're hearing some, consistent messages. If you don't agree and you're going to have different rules at home, then you may just want to say, these are the rules at home. These are the rules at school, and I expect you to follow the rules that are, appropriate for that place. So just, some things to kind of think about. Washing hands and using hand sanitizer, really, really important. They're doing it often. And like I mentioned, make sure that your child knows how to use the hand sanitizer, whether it's, a pump one or a squeeze, how much do they use? How do they rub it in? All of those things. Can they wash their hands independently? Some kids are better than that, at that than others. So you really want to make sure that your child has all of those skills. Not in the presentation, but we did see kids come back to school, first, second graders that may have been out of school for quite a long time, that are not having the appropriate skills to use the restroom at school. So that might be something you want to check in with your child as well, is, can they use the restroom independently? I had a little guy, completely undress for the restroom at school. And then he's little, he was not able to put his clothes back on by himself, but at school, we are not supposed to help with those kind of things. So it's something we had to reach out to the parents and say, hey, we need you to practice this at home because, we can't do that kind of stuff at school. One rule that has come up because of the health issues is all the kids are supposed to use only their own supplies. So they don't share supplies. They don't, share their germs. They don't share their scissors or their crayons. They keep everything in their little pencil box and only use their own supplies. So it's just new. We're used to sharing things back and forth, but it might be really important to, reiterate that at home, that remember, because we don't want to share germs, we don't want to share our supplies with other people. Another one is we're not supposed to be touching other kids either, so kids are kids. And a lot of times, they're touching their friends, they're getting too close together in line. And it's something that we are trying to keep everyone separated and safe at school. So just something to share again with your child that, remember, you need to keep your hands to yourself. We don't touch others at school. And we also need to keep our space from others. So you can play with your friends, but you don't want to be touching them or grabbing them, reaching out to them, those kinds of things. And things like when we have them all line up, it's important that kids know not to necessarily be standing right next to or touching their peers. So how to line up has been something that we're all working on. And a lot of classrooms have little little circles or something on the ground that are 3 feet apart. So when they line up different places, that they're all nice and spread out. It's kind of cute to see them all standing on their little circles. So virtual IEPs, during the pandemic, when schools closed, we all went to virtual IEPs, and I'm really questioning if they're here to stay. They seem Like they have a lot of efficiencies. So I'm thinking as a school professional, they're probably not going anywhere anytime soon. So how do we ensure that parents are participating fully? And I've been in a lot of them already. So here's some things, from my perspective, that parents can do to really participate in them fully is find a quiet spot to attend the meeting. A lot of parents are attending from their car, and I assume it's because they can't find a quiet spot in the house, and that seems to be working for a lot of people. But where is that going to be for you, where there's a quiet spot where you can really attend? I think last week or the week before I was in one, and I'm not sure exactly where the parent was, but it seemed like they might have been in a shopping area or some place where there was a lot of people talking in the background. There was a lot of background noise that was people talking. And it made it very difficult for that parent to participate, because when they weren't speaking, they definitely had to put it on mute because it was interfering with the rest of the meeting. And even when they would unmute themselves to talk, we couldn't really hear everything that they were trying to share. So finding a really quiet spot where you're going to be, somewhat uninterrupted is a really great plan. I know my cat makes an appearance in IEP meetings at times, and she could make an appearance right now during this webinar, but it's not going to interfere with my participation. Also, you want to make sure to reserve enough time in your schedule. So if it starts at 3 o'clock, you might want to plan to log in at 2:45, 2:50, a little before, so that you can make sure that you're not having any tech issues and really be there on time so the meeting can get started on time. And then if it says it's only an hour, you might want to reserve a little bit more time, because if there's important things to discuss and the team is available, they might just continue on. And we did have a parent the other day, two parents were participating, and one just suddenly kind of disappeared. And we were told, oh, well, he, had something to go and do, so not able to participate. But he was really giving us a lot of valuable insight that then we were missing because he had a time constraint. And we know that, you can't control all the time constraints, but if you can reserve enough time, that would be really important. Another tip is join from a computer if that's at all possible. So a lot of times the IEP teams are sharing their screen like I'm doing now for the webinar, but they're sharing their screen with the goals or the IEP or the notes, or they might have a document where they're, listing the strategy or the strengths of your child, the weaknesses and the strategies. And if you're joining from a phone, that might, make your participation a little bit more difficult, because you can't fully see everything. You may not be able to, swipe on your phone to really see all the different people who are talking and things. So if you can, really try to join that IEP from a computer. We've had parents jump on and say, oh, I borrowed this computer from my aunt or from my neighbor, or, those kinds of things. So really try to get a computer for that meeting and log in. I was reading something online, and it said, if you're not going to show up to an IEP meeting in your pajamas in person, then don't do it online either. And, I just think it's important to participate somewhat professionally, from the way that you're dressing to how you're speaking to people and those kinds of things. So it helps, the school professionals really take parents seriously. I mean, unfortunately, I think if you show up in pajamas, people may think that you're not taking the meeting seriously, and may not appreciate your input as much. Hopefully, a lot of us school professionals can look past a lot of that. But if you can, throw on a blouse or a shirt or something and participate. Also might be important to have your camera on. There's a lot of meetings that I've been attending lately where people are not turning their cameras on. Not usually parents, but usually other affiliated people. I think the schools are pretty much requiring all of us school professionals to attend with your camera on. And be very participatory, but sometimes other people are not. And it just kind of, it seems like this voice is coming from an abyss when that person is participating and we don't have a picture and a face to go with it. And I think that, the facial expressions and all of those kinds of things really help. Even I was in a meeting earlier today and somebody raised their hand, being that they had something to share. And if your camera's not on, you can raise your virtual hand, but this person just raised their actual hand and we saw and were able to take their input. Good lighting might be important too. I did attend an IEP meeting recently where someone had a light source, coming from behind them, and it made them really look like a shadow. And again, it's hard to really participate when we can't see all of your facial expressions and things like that. And in fact, this person kept saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't fix the lighting. Like, why do I look like a shadow?" And it was just more distracting than anything else. So if you can have that good lighting facing toward your face, that might help. Also, you really don't want to multitask during an IEP. They're not going to be that long. They're going to be an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours if you're going to have a long one. So really try to sit and focus on that meeting during that time, and try not to multitask. A lot of us school professionals have found that we can do a lot during an IEP meeting. Like I can work on a visual support for your child during the IEP meeting and get your feedback. And I might even be able to use screen sharing to show you and ask for your input. Those kinds of things might be more appropriate, but surfing the web or Facebook, it's probably just detracting from you attending to what the people are talking about. I really encourage everyone to be active participants, especially parents. Share information, ask questions, make sure that you're, clear on what everyone is sharing and that it's accurate. Those kinds of things are really important from a parent perspective. You may want to review IEP goals from the previous IEP. So if you're having an annual, you want to review those goals so that what goals they're going to cover. You want to ensure that all new goals meet the students' needs and really consider all areas of academics and development. So, does your child have behavioral goals that meet their needs? Do they have a writing goal? If that's an issue, do they have goals that really meet all areas of need? So don't be afraid to give some input on goals or ask the team to develop goals on things that are of concern to you. We don't expect parents to write the goals, but if you say, my child is having a difficult time with letter formation, then an occupational therapist or the teacher might offer a goal to support that. So it's just, all you have to do is mention that there's a concern. So some more just general tips to review the previous IEP information ahead of time. So reviewing those notes pages for some IEPs is really important because it might remind you like, oh yeah, last time we talked about, this issue and we need to follow up, or they said they were going to follow up, and let's make sure that we do. So reviewing that previous IEP can be really helpful. Really make sure that you problem solve tech issues early before the meeting. So, that we're not spending the first 10 minutes trying to get everybody logged on or trying to, find the link, or the computer is not charged, or, all of these things that can happen. And in fact, if you want to be ultra prepared, you probably want to have a backup computer or device or something that you can use as well. I know I was in a meeting somewhere during this pandemic because it was all, I was working remotely, and my computer kind of suddenly died, and I didn't really expect that to happen. It was, somewhat charged. And luckily I was able to just pull up my phone really quickly, log back on, and I'm not even really sure if a lot of people realized that that's what had happened, because I just kind of continued participation fairly seamlessly. But you want to make sure that you problem solve those tech issues so that you can fully participate and are not worried or not excluded from participation because of some of that. So you may want to prepare to join early. About 10 minutes is probably plenty. You might just get a message that says, the host will let you in soon, or something like that. But just sit and wait and be ready. You also want to make sure that you're following all those same virtual meeting norms of muting when you're not speaking. It's not as important for parents, especially if you're in a nice quiet spot and you're just really focused on the meeting. But if there's any kind of background noise, muting really helps, so that everyone can hear the person who's currently speaking. You do want to try to ask questions as they come up. So sometimes we like to leave a lot of questions for the end, but if you have a question on OT or fine motor skills and that occupational therapist is presenting, I would say, see if it's appropriate to ask it then, because they may have to leave and then you may forget that you had that question, things like that. So ask questions as they come up to make sure that you have all your concerns addressed, that things are really clear to you. As school professionals, we sometimes forget that parents don't speak the same language as we do, with all the acronyms and all the special terms and things like that, and we're very fluent in that. And so sometimes we forget, and I always appreciate a parent that says, hey, wait a minute, I don't know what you're talking about. And then it just is a reminder to me, oh yeah, I need to share information in a way that other people can really understand. So if you ask questions as they come up, you may want to have a little notepad by you so you can jot down things as you kind of think about them, so that you can make sure to get all of your questions and concerns answered and addressed. So I really encourage parents to not be a silent participant. Really offer suggestions that you think might help your child. Right now we're in a, I've said this like so many times, it's just a very unique school year. We're coming off of a year where kids were not in school. Some have not been in school for, a year and a half, 2 years. And you might have ideas and suggestions that really help your child, that the school team wouldn't think of or doesn't know, because we don't know your child as well as you do. So offer those suggestions. We had a great IEP meeting the other day where the parent was really sharing, like, here are all the strategies that I was using with my child during distance learning. And we were really talking about how can we modify those same strategies to work in an in-person format, to support her child. And it was a really great collaboration between me, the parent, the teacher, and the speech pathologist, to really try to figure out all of these ways that we can help, because it's just a little guy who's actually doing really great, but he's a little kind of nervous about having returned to school in person. And so we want to provide some comfort and some praise so that he can really feel comfortable. And you want to make sure that you request accommodations and strategies to support, and that those are reflected in the IEP. So if they are using some strategies at school, or they're making some accommodations, make sure that those get written in somewhere, because that IEP is going to follow your child from this year on to next year. And we may look at that the following year to see, okay, what were they doing to support that child previously? And if those things aren't captured somewhere in writing, then they kind of disappear. Another story along with that is, this year I had a little guy who had a really amazing distance learning teacher last year, and she was using some really great strategies to support him. And luckily I had attended enough of the distance learning sessions, and mom was really involved. So we were really familiar with all of those things. But that teacher left the district, so we don't have that teacher to reach back out to. And even luckier is the teacher that left the district is still friends with the current teacher, so they were able to make that connection. But I sent an email out to that previous teacher just to follow up with, what else should we be doing here? And it got bounced back that email address was no longer valid. So we may not have access to those people who have that information, but if it's written down in the IEP or in the notes, then we can all kind of remember and do those things that support the child. And then you really want to make sure that your IEP accurately reflects your child's needs. So, do they have the services they need? Do they have the accommodations they need? Is everybody, on that same page to kind of support your child fully? And that is, just parents' role as being an active parent and participant and advocating for your child is ensuring that us school professionals are doing our job and doing it properly and doing it well to best meet your child's needs. So I'm always happy to, hear some of those, whether they're concerns from a parent or feedback or suggestions. I think those are always really helpful. So just some things to kind of think about when we're thinking about virtual IEPs. The only thing that's changing is the location. So the location is just no longer in person, they're online, but all the rules still apply just as they did during in-person IEPs. And online IEPs should run very similar to how in-person IEPs ran in the past. So just because it's online and we have a changed location of the meeting doesn't mean that all the other rules go out the window. So just, kind of think about that online format is we should be having the meeting exactly the same as we would be if we were just having it in a different conference room. All those same rules still apply. Parents should still be able to participate and have input just as they would during an in-person meeting. After your IEP meeting, you want to follow up with the team as needed. So they should be sending out your IEP documentation. Some schools are using formats called like DocuSign, or they may be printing it out and sending it in your child's backpack like we did in the old school days. But you want to make sure that you follow up if there's any follow-up that's needed or action items or anything that's, somebody says, hey, I'll do X, Y, Z. I know I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago, told the parent I would do some parent communication. And then I got an email right after the IEP. And she's like, thank you so much for, doing that, offering to do the parent communication format where we're going to do some homeschool communication. But she sent me an email just to remind me, which I appreciate because those emails then stay in my inbox and remind me to do the things that I said I was going to do. And then you want to review the IEP document sent after the meeting, really ensure that it's accurate and reflects the services and the goals and everything that was discussed. And you may need to request revisions if that's needed. Sometimes the note taker may have been going a little bit quickly or, something may have been missed, and you can always request revisions to the document so that it accurately reflects what was discussed and what took place during the meeting. I think before we move away from this, I do think that there have the online IEPs as a school professional, we're seeing a lot of efficiencies with them. So I don't expect them to go away anytime soon. It is just a location change. So, we may see people start requesting in-person IEPs as we continue to move through this, but I don't expect them all to go back in person like they used to. So just, something to kind of consider.
Yeah, Michelle, if I can just add one thing. We often encourage parents to get their kids involved in their own IEP meetings. And I think doing it virtually during distance learning probably worked pretty well because the kids were at home, the parents were most likely at home. I wonder how that might work in the future. Let's say there's a student who's in middle school or high school. And, we always recommend that parents get their kids involved in attending their own IEPs. So maybe those types of meetings could be scheduled at a time when, like maybe first thing in the morning or late afternoon, so that the child can participate as well as the parent. So they're not in the middle of class.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a really great point. I know, I I'm speaking today as a school professional. I'm a behavior services person, but I'm also a parent of a young man who had an IEP. And I started encouraging him to participate in his meetings, about second or third grade when he was, able to participate. And we would have him come for, a few minutes at the beginning of the meeting. And we would, kind of do a little bit of an overview. And then we would excuse him from the meeting and have the rest of the boring IEP meeting that, he wouldn't be able to sit through or really understand all of it. But that really helped him learn how to participate. I actually do not see that very often at all. I do not see parents having their kids participate in meetings. I don't hardly ever hear of a parent request for their child to participate. I definitely think it's something that we should be doing a lot more of. I think most of the parents that I've worked with, they don't feel that that's important for their child to participate. So I think we need to really kind of rethink that and think about how kids can participate in their own meetings successfully. I know for my son, doing it really, attending the meetings really showed him how much the school team was kind of putting into his success. And it really caused his buy-in to, use some of the strategies that they were, sharing and really kind of participate more in his own educational success. And I know by the time he was about in sixth grade, he was really guiding a lot of that. He was, sharing how much time he wanted to be in his special day class versus how much time he wanted to be in general education and what he wanted to be in general education for, what was his, favorite subject. I remember sitting in an IEP as a school professional. The child we were speaking of, the student was in the room, but they were on an iPad just playing a game instead of actively participating. And us professionals are debating something for a while. And I said, wait, student's right there. Pretty sure we should just ask him what he would prefer. So we asked him to put the game down for a second, asked him, laid out the options for him, and he quickly picked one. And we actually thought, well, he picked so quick, like, is he really? And then he explained all why he chose that and why that would be better for him. And, we could have sat there and debated it for another 40 minutes and still been wrong. He told us in 30 seconds. So,
yeah, it's important, I think, especially, when students do get to that level of education where, they have those choices. Do you want to take this type of class or that type of class? Do you want, are you interested in going to clubs? Let's try to find some opportunities for you to do some extracurricular things. The student really needs to be involved in all that. So I would hope that we can find ways to accommodate that, even if IEPs are held virtually. And as a parent, I really liked doing the IEPs virtually because we could have the whole team there. It didn't matter that the team, sometimes teams are split up among multiple schools, but if you're doing it virtually, it doesn't matter. Everyone can participate. They're just on the screen.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. It makes it so much easier. And another good reason to, have kids participate is one experience I had was the parent was asking for a service. It was a recreation therapist service. And it was, the kid just resisted it at every turn. And he was fourth grade, and he just did not want to learn those playground games. He that's just wasn't his thing. He's like, I just want to stand and talk to my friends. I want to walk around and talk to my friends. I don't want to play handball. I don't want, but the parent kept asking for this service. And finally the child, really kind of spoke up and said, like, I don't want to do this anymore. And now he's in fifth grade, and in fifth grade and sixth grade and seventh grade, you don't play playground games really anymore. Now it is socially acceptable to stand around and talk to your friends. And in fact, that's what most kids are doing in junior high. So, how do we take our kids' opinions, into account when we're developing programming for them. And it would have been funny to have him in all those IEPs where the parent was really advocating for this service that the school was saying, may not be the most appropriate, because he would have been telling mom, yeah, I don't want to do that either. So, how do we take our kids' opinions and mold them in or meld them into what we're doing? So another thing that's really come up right now is homeschool communication. So schools really communicate a lot of different ways. We all get those robocalls from schools sharing information. There could be an online portal. I know some schools use something called Parent Square, or there was another one that my kids' school used, Infinite Campus.
Infinite Campus, Parent Square, Peach Jar, Parent Connect. There's all sorts of them.
Yeah, so it's important to learn which one your child's school uses and, participate. And I'm cringing a little bit because my son's school, when he was back in school, used Infinite Campus. And I would get those notifications on my phone from Infinite Campus that, yet again, my son had not done a certain assignment. And it was, so much communication that I actually had to turn some of it off. But you want to at least attend to those communications so that what's going on at school, that they have an accurate email address, and that you're somewhat attending to those to a degree that really helps support your student and your family. So make sure that you check those things and that they have all the right information, so that information's getting to you. And I know it's really difficult. A lot of parents are having trouble with all the different like technology ways that we're doing that communication. So you may have to advocate for some communication in a way that works for you. So I set up a Google sheet for a parent, and I said, well, if you just click this link every day, we'll put the information on there. And she really just told me, I don't have time to do that. I can't do that. It's not going to work for me. Can you just send the information in an email every day? Yes. Okay. If that's what works, it's a little bit more effort on our part, but she was really saying, like, I'm not going to get the information if you're telling me to do it that way. So you really want to make sure to advocate for what works for you. Make sure to check those portals and emails and things for those important communications. I mean, especially right now, because it could be related to health and safety. If there is, a positive COVID case in your child's classroom or in your child's school, you may be notified about that. So you want to make sure that you're checking those. We do know that kids are being, quarantined for periods of time. If there are positive cases, sitting so close to them, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then you go ahead.
We're hearing that, sometimes parents will get a phone call or an email, even, at 9:00 at night, regarding the next day. There's been a COVID case, and your child was in, close proximity, and they need to be quarantined for 8 days or 10 days or whatever it is. So even, I would make a practice of checking that information every morning, before going to school.
Yeah, I mean, that's
because things change so quickly.
Yeah. And I know as a school professional, I start checking that kind of stuff really early in the morning, because I'm dealing with staff calling out, needing coverage, those kinds of things. So about 5:30 in the morning is when I start attending to all of that stuff, to make sure that, all the students are going to be covered for the day, and that everybody's in place where they need to be. So I completely agree with that. Parents should be checking that in the morning before they go off to school, just so that they don't miss anything. Another thing I think is really important is to determine how best to communicate with your child's teacher. So your child's teacher may communicate via email, or they may use the app, or they may, use some other method of communication. Determine what works best for your child's teacher, and try to use that to communicate with them, even if it might not be your preferred method of communication. Just because, you want to be able to really streamline that communication and get it to your child's teacher in an efficient way. Make sure that you're sharing information about your child with your child's teacher. You know, all teachers are, like, at the beginning of any school year, really trying to get to know children, but there's just more going on right now. So, you know, I had a parent tell me, my daughter's just having trouble doing with separation. And she said, I'm having trouble with it because we have not been out in the world for a year and a half. And they've really isolated themselves, really spent a lot of quality time together. But knowing that helped us better support the child at school, just really making sure that, you know, we're encouraging and that we're attending to her as she's kind of coming onto campus. And also doing that helped mom see that we're doing that and that she felt more comfortable leaving. Also, be supportive of your child's teacher. Teachers are dealing with a lot, you know, on top of also being out of school, also dealing with COVID related issues. They're now implementing all of these new health and safety regulations in the classroom. They're teaching with masks on for 7-8 hours a day. It's a lot, and teachers are really struggling. So I'm just encouraging all parents to be patient. Know that, you know, returned communications might take a little bit longer because we're all on school campuses prioritizing what is the most important things to deal with, because we have, you know, behavioral challenges, health and safety issues that, you know, really have to come first before, you know, other things that are kind of lesser importance. So just know that and be patient. And, you know, maybe if you're going to communicate with your child's teacher, try to be brief and concise, because we just don't have a lot of time to, you know, kind of go through a ton of information. So that will really help streamline that communication and make it more efficient and effective. What you don't want is a teacher to see your name pop up in an email as a parent and not want to open it because they are worried about how long it's going to be. You know, so how do we be, you know, kind of concise with those communications? One thing that we're seeing, you know, at schools and really everywhere, I don't know if you guys have, you know, really experienced this, but when I go to dinner, there's signs that say, be patient, we're understaffed. I go to dinner, I want to go to my favorite restaurant, and they're closed because they don't have enough staff. I travel for work. Airlines are canceling flights because they don't have enough staff. I mean, it's just a problem everywhere. And like it is a problem everywhere, it's also a problem at schools. So, you know, the school professionals that show up every day, we also need to be kind and patient with them so they continue to show up, because they're the ones that are there helping to support your children. And we just, you know, we need to be patient and kind with everyone right now, because it's just been a real struggle. So how can you support those who are there to support your student? You know, so even if you have a concern, if you start it with a, you know, thank you so much for your support. However, here's my concern, you know, versus kind of, you know, attacking more, that is more likely going to lead to, if you're kind in your communications and you're sharing your concerns in a supportive way, then those of us who are responding to the concerns are going to be more likely to respond in a kind way versus, you know, really feeling attacked. And all the staff who are working are really dealing with just unprecedented challenges, like having to call parents and talk about COVID exposures and worrying about people getting sick, worried about their family getting sick, worried about their own exposure. And, you know, things are just taking a little bit longer because those of us who are showing up to schools are also dealing with a lot of the health and safety related challenges that can't wait. So an assessment or that parent communication about, you know, something that's not really priority might just be taking a little bit longer. But I, know that everybody who's working in schools we're all really trying our best. It's just that, there's just unprecedented challenges right now, including mental health challenges. So everyone, continues to experience some mental health challenges related to the pandemic. Kids are going through it, parents are going through it, teachers, staff, all of us. And some days might be better than others, but we have to remember that children may not have the ability to deal with it and to manage it. So your child might be acting out. Your child might be engaging in behavior that's not typical of them. And it may simply be because, they were home for so long. Now they're back in school. So it's our role as parents and school professionals to really support our children with managing through those challenges and learning the skills that they need to, meet the challenges of the day. So how do we do that? Well, we can listen and be empathetic. So, something as small as just acknowledging, like, I really understand that, that sucks, or that you're stressed, or, whatever that is, and acknowledging those feelings that your child is sharing can be really helpful. Allow your children to display the feelings that they're experiencing. So, if they're sad, let them be sad and provide that comfort. If they're frustrated, acknowledge that frustration, allow them to experience that frustration, and provide some comfort for them to kind of get through it. You may want to do some activities to help children deal with stress so that they learn how to manage it effectively, instead of a lot of the ways that us adults deal with some of that stress, like eating a gallon of ice cream. So it's better to go for a walk, or, have a nice conversation with a friend or something like that. That's a little bit more of a healthy choice. You may want to consider reducing demands on your children's time outside of school. So, if your child is in school 7 hours a day, and then they're going to soccer on Monday and gymnastics on Tuesday, and it might be too much. You might want to, just consider scaling back. My biggest example of this is my son had been taking the bus for a long time to school. He was doing it very successfully. And then he started to have challenges in school. And when I looked at everything he was doing all day, that was the easiest thing to remove from his schedule. It meant that I had to go back to driving him to school every day, but it was a demand that could be removed without, too much impact to him. In fact, it was just a really positive impact. But I didn't want to remove things like doing his laundry or taking out the trash, because those were all really important skills that he had learned how to do, and we wanted to continue. So, how can you reduce the demands? You can provide adequate downtime. But we also want to make sure that we're limiting screen time. So downtime and screen time, not the same thing. What is your child's downtime? Can you, go to a park, play with a friend, play, in their room with their toys? What other activities can they do? Because we really should still be trying to limit that screen time to some degree. So get outside for some outside activities. Get out for some interactive family activities. So, a lot of us during the pandemic, we played board games and we did puzzles and those kinds of things. And maybe it's important to keep some of those going as family activities. You may want to do some family activities that children enjoy. So, if your family activity is going to the Dodger game and your child does not like doing that, maybe it's time to rethink a new family activity that your child will like to do. Or if your child loves the Dodger game and that's a great family activity, then maybe you should make sure that you continue to do that. You also want to slow down if your family is just moving too fast. I think back to my active parenting, and there were times where there was just so much to do in the day that we were really moving through everything so fast, and it was causing a lot of stress. So take a look at your day, think about how you can slow down, create efficiencies, think back to like packing the night before, the lunches, picking out the clothes, don't wait till the last minute to do all of those things. And, sometimes we just need to leave more time for things like getting ready in the morning, or the evening routine. And really slowing down is really important. I know I've learned this a lot recently because my brother had a baby, and they have the baby, they eat dinner early, they go to bed earlier, and it's really caused us all to kind of take that to heart, and it's caused us all to slow down a little bit. You may want to teach your child techniques to deal with stress. So, are you teaching things like deep breathing or getting a drink of water or asking for a break when it's needed? And then model those skills for your child so that they can see that, we all kind of deal with stress, and how we as adults are modeling how we're dealing with that is likely going to be picked up by our kids. So talk about your feelings and healthy ways to manage stress. Talking to that with your child can be really helpful. And when I say use language thoughtfully, it's really consider what is coming out of your mouth when your child is within earshot, so that, we're modeling the skills and we're teaching the things that are really important for sharing with our children. Because if we're just, constantly talking about how stressed we are, but not showing those adaptive ways to manage it, that might make our child even more stressed and be making things worse. So we really kind of need to think about the language we're using and use it thoughtfully. On to some of the behavior challenges that we're seeing. We are seeing kids display behavior challenges that never have in the past, or that are brand new to school, that just really are having trouble with school refusal. They're having trouble entering into the classroom, adapting to the classroom routine. It's fairly typical right now on every school campus, whether it's because they haven't been in school, or it's that separation from parents after a long time of being at home. So we are seeing it. Talk to your child's school team, talk to the school about what strategies can be used to support them. We're going to go through some of them. So some are just really struggling with that return to in-person instruction. It seems to be a long day for kids. Even kids that were doing this before, it's like we took a really long break, and then they're really struggling with the longer days and attending and doing all the tasks. And we're asking a lot of your kids when they're in school. So they're very busy all day long. And some days I sit in classrooms and wonder like how they're all still awake and attending, because I would think they'd all be really tired. Teachers are providing a lot of breaks for movement, because we're seeing this, with everybody. So they're doing movement breaks in the class and movement breaks out of the class so they can take their masks off and things like that. Students may need a review of concepts they learned last year. I was in a classroom and the teacher was almost just laughing because all of the kids had pretty much missed a concept that they should have been taught last year. But with distance learning, we are seeing some of that learning loss. So don't be surprised if you need to review concepts that they went over last year. So here's some strategies that you can use to support, or that the school might use. Visual schedules to show what is coming up and what's happening during the day. That can be everything from just a written schedule with just words to pictures, if that's what your child needs. We're doing a lot of token charts to help kids just kind of break down activities and earn those tokens as they're completing their activities. They really, a lot of them like that. We're doing a lot of reminders of behavioral expectations. So like periodic review of the rules. And then you can do that at home as well. We're giving kids frequent breaks if that's what they need, because often they can take a 2-minute break and come back to instruction. But if we don't give them that 2-minute break, we have a 20-minute meltdown instead. I'd rather have a 2-minute break and a return to instruction than a 20-minute meltdown. So frequent breaks are something we're using. And then high levels of reinforcement. So that's just a lot of praise and attention when they're doing what they should be, so that, school is a fun and inviting place to be, and that they want to be there and they want to participate. So these are all things that you can also bring into your house. So bring some of those strategies that are being used at school to home. That creates a consistency between environments, but it also helps your child to adapt to some of those strategies and understand how they're used. You may also want to review the school rules at home so that, again, it's just being reinforced in multiple environments. Talk to students about their day. I have a mom who just says at night she gets the whole download. The kid comes home at 3 o'clock. He doesn't talk about his school day, but right before bed, if she leaves enough time, then she'll get all the information that she really needs to then pass on to the school team to help her student be successful at school. So, talk to your student about their day, ask those questions so that you can kind of prompt some of that conversation. And then you want to help them problem solve as needed. So if they bring up a problem at school, what could they have done to solve it? Can they talk to their teacher, or is there someone else? All those kinds of things that we can really teach our children to help them problem solve their own issues. If your student is struggling, know that you're not alone. A lot of students are. Collaborate with the school professionals. Determine what strategies might be needed to support. You may want to use those at home as well, again, so we have that consistency. And you want to be really supportive of the school professionals who are working to support your student. Again, they may be understaffed. They're dealing with a lot of challenges at school. Your student is not the only one who's struggling. And often we're trying to figure out who's struggling the most that we actually need to support right now. So we really need to make sure that those school professionals are fully supported so that they continue to come to school every day and work to best support your children. I've seen teachers really struggling right now and doing a phenomenally amazing job of struggling and then just turning it off and attending to their students' needs, as if, that struggle really never occurred. So some teachers are doing an amazing job of just not letting that stress impact their teaching and impact their students, but it's there. So whatever we can do to support one another, I think is really helpful. I wanted to throw in some of our behavior at home strategies. So in the beginning of the pandemic, when we thought it was going to be, just a few weeks or a short couple months, we were going to do some behavior at home stuff for some parents. You may want to go back and rewatch some of that if you're struggling with behavior now, because those same strategies could be really effective now. But I just want to share that all challenging behavior happens for a reason. And it's our job to figure out why it's happening and to help the child learn more adaptive skills. Sometimes those behavior challenges really identify a missing skill that we then need to go in and teach. So it always is communicating something to those of us who are supporting that child. And it's our role as the adults supporting to really figure out how to best support that child. So those prevention strategies help address those behavior challenges before they start. We really want to encourage good behavior, ensure that their basic needs are met. That's everything from having enough attention and sleep and food. I've got a little one that he comes to school now, and the first thing he does is eat, because while parents say he eats at home, and I have no doubt that they do feed him, by the time he gets to school, he's hungry again. And we really need to make sure he eats, because if he doesn't, he's not available for instruction. He's not learning anything or benefiting from school. So a 5-minute snack then helps him transition into school successfully. And really having a consistent schedule, again, is really important so that you can, have that consistency within your home and your child can kind of get used to that. Some other strategies is give 2 to 3 choices when possible. Not more than 3. Our kids get, overwhelmed if we give them 4 or 5 choices, but, just give them a couple. Do you want to wear this shirt or that shirt? Do you want to have, do you want to sit here for dinner or sit here for dinner? Or do you want to, eat chicken or steak? Whatever those choices are, if you can give some of those, it might be really helpful. Use a lot of first then statements. So first we're going to do this and then we're going to do that. It just helps children know what's happening now and what's coming up next. Provide those frequent reminders of the expectations. Remember, at dinner, we need to sit at the table and we need to eat, whatever those expectations are for your home, to share those. Review the daily schedule. And then use timers and visual supports as needed to help kids kind of make it through their day. It's our role to assist child through challenges. So, if they're having a rough moment, that's the time to just kind of manage through that challenge, help support them, use some coaching to help them get through it. I've always been one that prefers non-punitive approaches. So a punitive approach is like losing recess or losing access to a toy, or losing points because they did something they shouldn't have. And now more than ever, with the mental health challenges we're dealing with, those just typically are not helpful. So anything you can do to use non-punitive approaches would be really, really helpful. So be supportive, understand that just like you are dealing with a lot of challenges, so is your child, and they may not have the ability to navigate it as well as we do. And then for you as parents, seek help when you need it. There's a lot of school professionals who are willing to help, a lot of, friends and family, and the Family Focus Resource Center. They're all there to help. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help when you need it, because someone else might just have, a great idea that is really helpful. So I wanted to throw some additional resources in there. You may want to ask your child's teacher or school if you're looking for a resource on a particular topic. So, if you need a resource to help your child with reading, child's teacher or the school is the best place to ask for that. If you're looking for the place to get a good haircut or what pants to wear because your child doesn't button their pants on their own, then you ask the Family Focus Resource Center for those things in your local area, or other parents, but there are parents who have it all. In fact, I often refer to Victoria as the resource queen, so just ask her, she knows. Schools are also providing counseling services. Your school may have a peer buddy program, and in fact, if they don't have an official one, we're designing those kind of on the fly for some kids that are really benefiting from those. There also might be homework clubs or homework help available through various resources for families who need that as well. So just don't be afraid to ask for help. For more in-depth behavior at home series, the Family Focus Resource Center's YouTube channel has the entire 5-part behavior at home series. And I encourage you, if you're struggling with some behavior challenges, to go back and watch some of those. While we were talking about behavior at home during the pandemic, because kids were home all the time, still everything, the strategies shared and everything are really applicable. So thank you for watching. Thanks for having us, Victoria and the Family Focus Resource Center. I hope some of this was helpful to parents out there and everywhere, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for the shout out. Yeah, we do have a lot of good content on our YouTube page with not only the Behavior at Home series in English and in Spanish, but a lot of other workshops. So I'll put the link to our YouTube page in the chat. And earlier today, I did put a link, just a little while ago, in the chat with the presentation. People always say, where can I get a copy of this presentation? So it's too big to email, so we put it up on our website, and it's right up there in the chat. If you want to look for that, you can study it later or share it with somebody, or just keep it for your records. Someone asked a question. I'm not sure. I don't think it went into the chat where everyone could see it, but they asked about providing input during the IEP meeting. How can they provide input during the IEP? So I just wanted to share this one tip. Now that IEP meetings, at least a lot of them, are virtual, and you're getting an email from someone who's taking the notes in the IEP, I like to write down all my concerns. I call it the parent concerns. So some of it could be a question, or it could be a concern, or it could be a hope for something that might child might learn in the next year or next school year. Just put all that in an email and send it to whoever the person is, the case manager at the school who's doing the notes in this IEP, and say, please attach this to the IEP. Just put it in the IEP notes. And they can just copy and paste everything you type. And then it's in the IEP, it's in the record. So, you know, if you talked about inclusion opportunities, or if you talked about a goal that you hope that will be worked on that, you know, isn't, it might not be an IEP goal, but it's something that you would like to see addressed, or anything you want to share, just ask that it be included in the parent input part of the IEP, and they'll put it in there.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy. I also think if you have a lot of those concerns, or if you have a lot of questions before the meeting, send those to the team ahead of time so that, you know, they have time to think about them and possibly address them during the meeting. I don't actually see that happening very often, but it would be good if you, you know, reach out to the case manager or the child's teacher and share some of those ahead of time, just so we can be sure that we make time and get those things in the meeting. So I think those are great ideas. I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. You talked about homework clubs and some, you know, social opportunities. There are, you know, school districts are getting some additional funding over the next couple of years to help address some of the issues, some of the social emotional issues, and also academic learning loss that have occurred over the past year and a half. So they are starting things like, you know, after school homework clubs or social clubs or things like that, or things that might happen at lunchtime. So if that's something that you think your child might benefit from, bring it up to the school and do it now, because a lot of these plans are still very much in the formation phase. They're still figuring out what's needed and how to set it up. So this is a really good time to, you know, maybe make a suggestion. I think it would be great if there was a club for boys who find it hard to make friends at school. Maybe they could start a Lego club or something like that. You know, just bring up these ideas, because there are these opportunities that are happening.
Yeah, I know one teacher, you know, it's this informal peer buddy program. You know, she noticed a couple of students in her class were having some difficulties kind of making friends, and, you know, they're on the shy side. And so she picks a couple of them every day and lets them pick who their peer buddy is going to be for that day. And sometimes they move to sit next to each other, or they, you know, it's like they're going to play together at recess, they're going to play together at lunch. And it's great because almost 100% of the other kids raise their hand to be the peer buddy for the kids who are choosing. And they're taking so long to choose that the teacher actually just does a quick countdown, and they have to choose like really quickly. But it's really cute to see all the other kids like rally to support those kids who are choosing their peer buddy for the day. So, you know, just little things like that teachers can do to really help students. But we don't know to do that unless parents communicate, or, you know, sometimes we're smart too and we figure those things out in class. But if you know something that teacher doesn't know, then it's important to communicate.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Okay. I want to take this opportunity to let everybody know that in addition to workshops like this, the Family Focused Resource Center has Iep Training Workshops every month. We have a Iep Basics workshop, and this month we are adding a Advanced Iep workshop. So look for that on our calendar. I'll put the link in the chat, and hopefully, you know, that will be something that will help people, you know, figure out different ways that you can try to get your child's needs met during the IEP process without having to go to a due process experience. So I put their link to our all of our events in the chat. It's on our website on a page called events. So you can look for that there. I also want to let you know that we usually, in most years, for the past 8 years, we've had a resource fair on campus at Cal State Northridge, which is where our administrative offices are. And we didn't have one last year. This year, we have opted to have a virtual resource fair. So, you know, it's still not really, we're not really sure about having a big event and a lot of people. So we decided to have a virtual event. And that is going to be on October 23rd. And again, that information is on our events page. If you get our email newsletter, and you may get it because you found out about this workshop, all the information was in our September newsletter that just came out a few days ago. So watch for that. We had a small virtual resource fair last spring to kind of try it out. So, and it went pretty well. So we're going to have our big one this fall, and hopefully that will work out very well too. So we'd like to see some of you there. And at this time, are there any additional questions for Michelle? You can type it in the chat. You can raise your hand and we'll open your mic. I'm not seeing anything at this time. You can always follow up with us after this meeting. And I will put this recording up on our YouTube page as soon as I can do that. It'll probably be up by tomorrow. So,
All right. Well, thanks, Victoria, for the opportunity to share. I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, a lot of really good information about a year that, you know, it just keeps changing, keeping everyone on their toes, parents, teachers, kids. So thanks again for the great info, and thanks everyone for spending time with us this afternoon, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.